So Dave, I think I've pretty much finished the Sherman here, but just wanted to get your opinion on, if we should do any more dirt mud effects on other parts of the vehicle that maybe I haven't addressed yet.
It's amazing. It's not June the 6th type of weathering. It's sort of later in that summer. It looks fantastic. The only thing I suppose is due to explosions that happen through artillery. Just a little bit up here on the commander's hatch, and then I think we're done. It looks fantastic.
Thanks, Dave.
And I love, like a lot of these Shermans, if you look at 50% of the Shermans, they're all bagged up and stowage and all that stuff, but access to this hatch is important. And if suddenly there's a drone of a 109 or something in the sky, they don't start piling this equipment back on. They hit the road and head for the trees. So it's really captured in our Sherman here, Davey. You've done a congratulations. It looks
thank you.
brilliant.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Really,
That was a lot of fun.
And it's an out of the box 25-year-old Tamiya kit that you'd never know it. It looks like the brand new release from Tamiya. The 88. So yeah, you've done a fabulous job. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Dave and I are just sort of shooting the breeze this morning about moving forward on our Normandy Sherman here. I'm going to just touch up a little bit of this road and attach it to our little vignette here. There's just an episode or half an episode left before the whole vignette is complete. I'm just going to touch up on the road this morning, add some pastels, and what I'll do is I'll take the same. It's important to take the same colors that Dave used up on his Sherman to apply it to the groundwork and the road. So I know that the vignette itself hasn't been on camera in a couple episodes, but that's strictly because we're going to steal colors from one and apply them to the other. So without those colors on there, of course, we couldn't do that. So now that we have a color palette to work from, as far as taking the Sherman and when I said earlier, this is not a June the 6th type of Sherman, you can just tell by the different colors gathered on the weathering that Dave's captured, from the terrain in Normandy, the groundwork in Normandy, and all that sort of stuff. When the Shermans came off the landing craft that day, obviously they were brand new, or they've been running around England in training exercises. So
They'd be pretty clean.
they'd be pretty clean. So I think what we've done here is taken our tank to the end of June or early July with Dave's weathering, and it's worked out for everybody. These YouTube videos are to show techniques and everything. So once again, thanks so much.
My pleasure.
It looks brilliant.
I had a blast doing it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and in 2018, Dave and I have a whole series of more videos to come. So I think as the Allies moved forward towards Berlin, of course, they started to run into King Tigers and heavy equipment like that. And one of the things for 2018 is to do a King Tiger knocked out in our video series. So one of the things we'll show is shell holes in the side, and a German King Tiger with all the suspension given out, the torsion bars all given way, and the weight of that tank crushing down on the body. And
So there'll be some nice burn damage and whatnot on the vehicle, fire damage, that type of thing.
yeah,
Nice.
so we won't go into great detail about washes and things that we've already talked about in the Panther episodes, but as far as the painting and the beautiful washes that Dave has applied to his Sherman, we won't go into great depth on the King Tiger. We'll talk about the burnt out color palette and the ashes and the reason why the torsion bars give when the for this case the King Tiger being nailed, and it goes back to that beautiful book, the Archives book, Forgotten Archives #2. There's some, and also too the Panzer wreck. All those German pieces of armor.
Those are great sources of inspiration.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so those are the sources which has inspired our 2018 series. And like I say, it's all about the Allies, the Canadians, British, Americans, of course, Polish, all those armies moving forward towards capture of Berlin. So bringing on the end of the war. And then I think maybe later in 2018 we'll maybe do a Russian piece, you know. So anyway,
Absolutely.
lots to look forward to. But right now I'm gonna just finish painting off this road, show you where it fits. Dave will place the Sherman, and then we'll shut her down, and then anyway we'll move forward. There's not much left to do on our little vignette, and once again this vignette is with me visiting the World Expos, especially in Europe, to see the tanks in their settings, bringing up Normandy and making sure that it looks like Normandy. All the dioramas and all the tanks on display over there at World Expo in Stresa. It was beautiful, Dave, because there was probably 500 tank models, and probably 490 of them were on a vignette type setting with Groundwork. So if there's any way that we can sort of promote that sort of part of the hobby, doing a little bit of groundwork, putting things in their natural setting as opposed to just putting them on a white tablecloth, I think we've maybe accomplished a little bit of that in the last couple of weeks. So let's keep going.
Sounds good.
Keep going. And the King Tiger will have also some groundwork. Not as elaborate as this. It'll just be sitting in a field, but having all those torsion bars given away and the burnt out grass around it and that sort of thing, it'll really look, spectacular. And we'll go over on how to burn out the grass and how to, like I say, burn up the King Tiger. So, but as far as our groundwork and our little road for our little vignette, as you guys know, I've kept this palette pretty tight. And again, it's simply because of memory. Sometimes you don't always remember moving forward because you put a project down for a couple weeks or a month or two. It's got to be an easy thing to retrieve. So as you guys know, my palette is pretty small. But for the road, I'm going to use Tamiya colors, a little bit of Tamiya thinner, XF72, 9, a little bit of black, and XF20. Those are the colors used to bring this road together. And then I'll use the combination of pigments that Dave has used up on the Sherman to tie it all together. So let's go ahead here. And doing the road, these roads are 100 years old or longer. I mean, they were there long before the invention of mechanical. Quite often they're cart roads turned into cobblestone just because of the weight of vehicles, but these pathways have been around Normandy forever. So keep that in mind as you're working through. When I go to marriage up this with the little schoolyard setting that we've got, it's easy to do. But as far as painting the road, just take these random colors and what you want. In my case, I'm just going to do a taupey sort of color, and to achieve that, I just mix all 4 colors together.
So Dave, when you're putting that color on, how much thinner are you using?
It's a little more than what you do with your oil paints on your tank. I would say that's about 50%, and that's, you can actually use water as well. It's more economics than it is. I could sit here and brush this paint right out of the jar, but
It looks like it's almost like a bit of a glaze you're using. Is that...
Yeah, and like I say, part of it is economics. It doesn't take a lot to move this across the cobblestones here, and plus too, it'll flow nicer into the easier into the cracks.
Yeah, I can see that. That looks great.
And it's just totally random. You know, it's bricks. I mean, these bricks are, I'm sure, laid down totally at random. So therefore, to paint them, and bricks don't. I mean, even though they might come from the same brickyard, there's going to be some random colors. So, in the odd time you'll see on here where there's a red brick, those are just slotted in there. Those are sort of replacement bricks from time past. You know, a brick gets tossed up from a truck or horses or whatever, and you know, just through time they wiggle loose, they break and crack.
Oh, it's a great effect. Oh yeah, it's a nice variation to it.
Get a little bit of, and just be cautious, guys, about using the black with these taupey colors, because it will dominate. So see, if I put it on there like so, it suddenly has changed everything. So just be cautious when you're using black to use just a thumbnail of black. Similar when you're mixing with white, you know, it will really change things. Now I don't airbrush this for a reason. The road and the thickness of the paint that you and I are accustomed to when we airbrush, it's normally thinned down 50%.
At least, yeah.
And it doesn't have a lot of bonding power if all the strength is in the thinner. I mean, thinner is for that reason. It loosens paint. It thins down paint. So I don't airbrush this part. It's hard to get the weathering to stay if I do, because you know I'm going to scrub this with pastels, you know, the pigments, and if I airbrush this would easily wear down right to the white plaster if
So putting it down by brush gives it a more durable finish because you've got more paint to
yeah,
work with,
exactly.
basically.
And one way around that, if you want to speed it up and you want to airbrush it, because I mean these Barbakan roads are excellent, but obviously we've cut half of it away, so it is easier to airbrush it. You won't get the random stones picked out unless you sit there and nail them. But one of the things you could do if you wanted to airbrush this street is you could then lay down, say, to me, a flat coat or one of the flat coat products. That would give it a little more strength.
Kind of protect the underlying color.
Yeah, I think with an airbrush though, you just don't get that random brick effect enough.
I mean, that looks great.
I mean, nowadays when they don't lay down this type of road anymore. I don't think, at least certainly not in North America. But I would imagine if they did, all the bricks would be the same color, and there wouldn't be any randomness. It's just a different time, you know. It's 100 years later, maybe 150 years later. Things are done so much differently now.
Well, then and there's always, I think, you know, just like there is with weathering, there's always a bit of artistic license that you take. It
just looks more interesting.
Yeah, it's far more pleasing to the eye, right?
Now, one of the other things I mentioned earlier about you could actually do this with water. One of the things, as we know, these are hydrocal products. And using water and plaster work quite well together. And what you don't want to do is start putting too much water on this, because it'll soften the brick corners. Mm. You know? You don't want it to sort of deteriorate the product itself. So if you use, to me, a thinner, or if you use rubbing alcohol, it evaporates very quick, and therefore doesn't it wouldn't deteriorate any of the.
Plus, I think it aids in the flow too, because the surface tension on that isn't anywhere near as high as what you get with water.
Right.
No, it's a nice effect.
Yeah, and just try to hit all the little white spots in the plaster. But if you don't worry about it, because the brick mortar is going to also flow in a minute in here. So that'll catch any of the little white corners that you missed. But you're right, Davey. The thinner will help the flow for sure. So then what I might do, and like I say, these red bricks here are replacement bricks in the street itself. And don't use this Hull Red, this XF9 full on. I mean, these bricks are, like I say, they're 100-year-old bricks. So just soften the color a little bit with maybe a little bit of light gray. And just pick out a brick. And sometimes when you're doing the replacement bricks, do a couple together, because if they are going to deteriorate or crack or anything, or get tossed up by a heavy vehicle, quite often there's more than one missing. They're right beside each other. There might be two. So, but don't do a lot of it. Don't suddenly turn this into a quilt. Just subtle is all we really need. So then what we do is we take the pigments that are on the Sherman, and the reality is obviously the dirt came first, not the Sherman tank. So, but we're letting that dictate the colors. It's important. So if you took say one of the products, the Kursk yellow product that's more or less on the grass and what have you. That was never used on this Sherman. We never used Kursk earth on the Sherman, so avoid it. Don't go near it. Use exactly the same pigments moving forward. And then when I get to the edge of the street, and they overlap onto the groundwork, and once again I'll be using these same colors as opposed to the ones that are back into this vignette here. So we'll just let that sit and dry. There's going to be a little bit of, it's going to be a little bit moist for a minute. Fortunately, too, the hydrocal absorbs fast. So
Yeah, it looks like it's
but you know what?
pretty much
Off camera, I painted this area. So what I'll do is I'll apply the pigments to this area here, which are thoroughly dry, and then
You just brush it into try to work it into the crevices there, Dave?
yeah, and just like we've been doing all along, a lot of stippling and
Yeah.
they and it instantly will give it that road effect, that dusty old road effect. That, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna show where a Jeep or a farm tractor or what have you has gone down just by giving it a brush right down the sides here to let me make it look like tire marks. And so there's those bright red bricks, and they're no longer bright red. They're just blended in beautifully. So and then to affix it, of course, we take our A20 thinner and I will just drop out at about a millimeter or two above the pigments now. Drop that out, let it dry for an hour or so. But I'll do that off camera.
Now, do you leave pigments on the top of the bricks like you have here?
Once I apply this, this will make it flow back into the crevices. It does look neat. I wish it could stay, but it's one of those things that it just doesn't stay.
They'll just pull everything into the cracks.
Yeah,
and
it
crevices.
just will go into the cracks. But as I'll show next time we're on camera, I just take a regular cotton, an old t-shirt or an old rag, and I just shine the area where the tires would run, and just put a little bit of polish right on top of these bricks, as you know, endless amounts of vehicles traveling over the years would just polish these bricks, you know, right down. So what I need to do that is I have to get say a Willys Jeep or a truck, and I'll know the width of the wheel spacing, right, and do it correctly. Now obviously that's
going to vary.
That's going to vary a bit, but depending on the vehicles. But what I'll do is I'll drop it onto our little vignette. And also too, our vignette is small, so the Sherman tank, and I'll let you put the Sherman on, but it's going to take up a lot of space. A lot of these things, for instance, the colored bricks and what have you, are going to vanish into thin air the minute you drop that Sherman on there. But you have to do it.
Just like that there, Davey?
Yeah, or a little bit angled over the side of the road a little bit.
Like so?
Yep, like so. And you see how we're almost done. There's going to be, you know, the Sherman tank is 35 tons. I mean, it's going to crush a little bit of the groundwork, which we're not going to get into on these channels, but there would be sort of groundwork kicked up just in the corner here. Maybe in time, maybe if we decided to go to, say, the U.S. Nationals and bring this with us, we would spend the time doing that. But I think for doing it off camera down the road is something that we do. I mean, to chew up all the groundwork that we've done just isn't necessary to show. But what I'll do, though, is I will add pigments. I'll add a bit of plaster in here just to marriage the road with the groundwork. And for our very final video on this exercise, what I'll do is we'll get the figure out.
Yep.
I think Elliot's finished painting the figure, and
Great
we'll
to see
place we'll place the figure, in an appropriate place, and that'll be it. So Dave and I appreciate all our viewers watching.
Absolutely.
And one more brief video, and we're all done. We'll start off in the new year with a new project. So thanks so much, Dave,
Thank
for
you,
coming
Dave.
out.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
Your Sherman tank is just brilliant.
Oh,
so
thanks very much, Dave.
Looks really
Appreciate
terrific.
that. That's
And
I can't wait to see everything finished with the figure and all the groundwork done. I think it's going to look real nice.
Yeah, we'll marriage it all up together beautifully. So thanks again for watching.
Thanks, everybody.